And welcome to the show, Our Islam and Community Issues. Today our topic is Buddhism for Black Americans, a conversation with Lama
Rangdro.
because I will mess the brother's name up. Well, we appreciate you coming. This is part 3 of the series, and we've talked about your background. You were in New York City, and how you grew up in Los Angeles, and how you came into Buddhism. And we'll get into that probably a little bit more. What we want to do on this segment is show some of the pictures that we have. And I don't know where you want to start, but there's like 4 categories. There's one category called the caves, another one travels, another one your published materials, and one try images. Any particular way you want to start?
Not really. If you just bring them up, I'll give commentary on them as we go.
Okay, just bring up the pictures there, and we will move from there.
Okay. As part of my travels, I spent some time in India, and in the central section of India, all the way across, there are ancient Buddhist caves that have been carved into the rock. And some of them are very deep. And in the back, you'll find a statue of the Buddha. And all these caves are carved in reverse. So if you see a statue, they carve the tip of the nose first, and then they carve backwards. And adorning some of the caves are beautiful paintings that were painted, as I said, anywhere from 2nd century to 7th century AD in Western time. So they are very old. So on the left, you have a picture of Buddha in a prior lifetime to him achieving Buddhahood, and he's a bodhisattva. And you know that brother, you've met him. And the importance of that is to understand that image is at least 1,300 years old. And he is wearing robes similar to the robes that I wear today. The picture on the top is a picture of Buddha surrounded by various people and bodhisattvas. And if you look at that one carefully, you'll see that he looks like he has dreadlocks. He has like cornrows. Right?
Yeah, you can see it here on this way too.
Yes.
Yeah.
So on the side of his head, and there are Buddha statues in Cambodia that do have cornrows. I didn't bring any images of that today. So then on the far right, you have, this is Buddhist from Japan, but he has a huge afro, right? Then on the lower left in the middle, you have the picture of someone, a practitioner from my tradition. We've seen that brother. I think he lives 2 blocks over.
I work with somebody who looked like that.
Right.
Definitely.
And so that's an image of an individual that's from the last century. That's at least a century old. And then here, this wonderful, beautiful sister in the Ajanta caves. And when I show you like these pictures of this sister and so forth, there are thousands of images like that in these caves, thousands. And there are 1,000 caves. So, I mean, I can't show them all, but I want you to know that the feminine is deeply represented in Buddhism in the caves. And in those days, they didn't have like an idealized Buddhism. They drew pictures of the way people really look like at that time. So she really looks like that, right? And there were people, artists, some of them specialized only in the eyes.
Wow.
Some specialized in the nose and the lips. Some specialized as drawing, this was all drawn in line drawings on the stone before it was painted. So this is a artist community who is creating, wanting to leave a lasting legacy. And the paint from our time barely lasts 10 years. You got to repaint your house.
Right.
This paint inside a cave, over 1,000 years. So this gives you a sense of the idea that Buddhism is not something new and foreign to us. It is our heritage. It is our legacy. And not because I said so, but because the ancient people of those times took time to depict the Buddhists the way they appeared at the time. So the distance between being able to identify these people as real people is the distance of what enslavement has done to us. Isolation from the world. There are many people in our community whose families were brought here during slavery, and they have never left this country. That's what I mean by isolation. And so when they go to the libraries and they take classes and they get degrees, sometimes they don't get the information because, like for me, you have to travel, you have to go and look, and lo and behold, there you are. I saw my whole community.
Right.
You know what I mean? And it was very familiar to me. So that's what I just gave these as an example.
Right.
But it's, in the caves there are thousands of pictures and there are 1,000 caves. But in Asia, there are millions of pictures. The role of the picture and the statue in Buddhism is for those people who are illiterate, who cannot read, to be able to glean the meaning and the depth and the understanding from the images, right? Because they're human beings, and when they see that, they say, "Oh, okay, this is what it is." You want to go to the next?
Yeah, let's go to the next one.
All right.
So this looks like a traveling man.
Okay,
Speaking
so
of travel.
just to give, and I have students on every continent. I have them in Africa, in South America. They call me the Black Dhaka, and Dhaka means it's kind of like angel, male angel.
Well, speaking of that, tell us what your title means, your whole title.
Yeah, right. Lama Choyin Rangdrol is my title. It's not my name.
Right, your title.
I retain the name that I was given in this society, and that's on my passport. But Lama Choyin Rangdrol means La stands for light. Ma is the universal word for mother. Most cultures, all children, one of the first sounds they make is Ma, right? So Lama, mother light. Choyin, which in Tibetan is actually pronounced Chuyin, but for Western purposes, Choyin means to cut, to sever, right? And then Rangdrol means Dharmadhatu, it means liberation, okay? So light, mother light, cut, liberation. So what you could translate it as liberation, self-liberation into the mother light. And the mother light is, as I said in the last segment, refers to this light of the mind, to be liberated into that. Because that light is even present right now as I'm looking at you. It's combined with the light in the ambiance, but it is ever present. And it is a deep expression of your humanity, and all human beings, based on species phenomena, have the same light. That's how we see each other. That's how we know each other, right? So that's what the title means, and I keep it separate from my name because my name is deeply laden in enslavement. But this name, which the nation can understand, is not. It doesn't come from that experience. It comes from this experience of a place that has never enslaved my people. So, yeah, that's what it is. And I have people in different cultures call me different things. Like in India, I'm known as Lama Ji. Ji is an honorific. So they know me as Lama Ji, Black Dhaka. It depends on where I am in the world.
Right.
So, as I said, travel is important. So I gave you these images. This is on the right is me in Cambodia at Kulin Mountain, which is it's a temple so sacred to the Cambodians that they don't let a lot of tourists go there. You have to be. And I was accosted on the way there by the few remnants of the Khmer Rouge in the forest.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and it's surrounded by landmines, so you have to have a guide. So me and my guide were walking up and up the mountain, and I slipped, and the guide said, "Well, be careful." And I said, "Oh, thank you very much." He said, "No, landmines." And then a guy came out the bushes, and they had an argument.
Yeah.
And then I said, "Well, what was that about?" He said, he asked me, "Why did I bring you up here?" And I told him that you are a Buddhist from America, and he couldn't believe it.
Wow.
Because the only African Americans he's ever seen have had guns in their
And
hands.
soldiers, right.
And so, being distinguished enough to be allowed in and guided through the landmines and to encounter the Khmer Rouge, is significant. So that's what that picture's about. The picture in the middle at the top is, that's overlooking the Baltic Sea in the city of Tallinn, Estonia, which is right next to Russia, where I was involved in a conference on masculinity in the Scandinavian countries. They were having problems with the men. They had funded the women becoming educated, and the women became so educated that they stopped marrying the men because the men were not educated, and they started marrying foreign nationals to the point that the native population was dwindling.
Wow.
So they had a huge conference to discuss how can we get these men to understand how to be better partners for the educated women. So that was there. This over to the, I guess, it's my right.
Well, you can just say how it is, because it'll show up, I think,
Okay,
to the audience.
so on my right, that's me on the border of Burma and Thailand, Myanmar, and that's with the Karen. It's in a Karen community, and they have the brass rings that they wear on their necks. And the only other culture in the world, you're asking me about the African American connection,
right.
is the Ndebele tribe, which is formerly Zulu, actually Shaka Zulu's people. Some of them left, and they went to the neighboring country, but they retained the brass rings. Down on the right, that's me in a slum.
I think it'd be on the left.
On the left, so I'm facing. Okay, on the left, that's me in the slums of India, and the importance of the African American survival glow, the triumph, having made it through it all to who we are today, shared with the children in the slums. And in the slums, for example, they don't have any trash pickup. They have dogs and cats and pigs and goats and chickens. So they throw their trash right outside, and the animals eat all the organic matter, and then they collect what's left, refuse, and they go and burn it. So there's no trash. Some of them have open sewers, and they have a well, and these people gather in these slums because the violence is so great out in the rural areas that they are safer living in these what we would call deplorable conditions as a group, rather than being isolated and victimized by upper caste people in the rural areas. And so, as I said, we have a contribution to make as African Americans in the world if we can just get there and get our minds together and get somehow past the avarice that we have inherited as a result of our history on this continent. Then in the middle, this is at Nagloka in Nagpur, India. This is a major Buddhist training facility where they bring young people from all over the country, and some of them don't speak the same language, and they bring them there. They teach them about Buddhism. They teach them about social justice. They teach them how to use modern cameras and cell phones, and then they go back into the communities after a few years, and they become reporters of the conditions. And then there's an umbrella organization that takes all that information and catalogs it in a clearinghouse so that people know what is going on in India. These are all untouchable women. Wow. And so they're just beautiful. That's all I can tell you. And again, when you to understand the mother light is to radiate the mother light in a way that brings joy to people. And so my smile is their smile, and their smile is my smile, because we all are one in understanding what's necessary. So also in Buddhism, in Tantric Buddhism, the women are the thing. they are the holders of the magic. Because in Tantric Buddhism, you're trying to birth a new mind. You take what's the soiled mind that has occurred as a result of what has happened to you, like a lotus seed in the mud. And then through the Buddhist practice, you try to raise a consciousness that is completely pure and clean from that, right? Like the lotus comes above the water and is without any soil. And this birthing of a new mind is related to the birthing process in a woman.
Right.
And so the connection there with Tantric Buddhism is that men don't have that experience. So it's all intellectual to us.
Exactly.
But women actually harbor this very human experience deeply in their consciousness and in their bodies. And so to be invited into a gathering of young women to sit with them is a kind of acknowledgement from the feminism, from the feminine, not feminism, from the feminine, that that you have arrived at a certain place. So Dalit feminism, Dalit is another name for untouchable. Dalit feminism is very different from American feminism. I can't get into that, but and I really shouldn't, because there are some really great Dalit feminists in America who can speak for themselves.
Okay.
But you know, just to say that this tradition of Buddhism that I'm in holds the elevation of the experience and the counsel and the acknowledgement from women to be one of the highest things that you can have. So this is me with them, and it was a great honor. So that's, you know, travel.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is travel brings you a rich experience, and this is a little insight into what I've come to know.
Yeah, yeah, those pictures, they say a lot. They say a lot. Very good. Okay, let's go to the next panel of pictures.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
So you were looking for, again, meaning. This is green Tara. Would it be on my left?
Well, you can just do it like how it is on here, because it's
This
the same way on the
this is
screen.
green Tara, and if you notice on her shoulders, you'll see two flowers, blue flowers with a red, what we call a tuft, and that tuft is the sign that those are what we call the lily of the Nile, and that's it might be a replica of the statue of Tutankhamun that was found in his funerary area. And his head is rising out of, you can see the blue lily of the Nile. So what is the blue lily of the Nile with Tutankhamun's head doing in the high snows where you and I could probably not breathe in Tibet, right?
Right.
And so in between that is this image. This is also green Tara. We know that because of her hand position on the right that's holding something, just like this one, and the hand position on the left is holding the stem of a flower, just like this one. So we know that that is green Tara, but if you look carefully, you'll see she has African features, Afro-Indian features, large nose, thick lips, broad face, right? That's not a European picture. It's not completely Indian. It's not completely African either. So what we're talking about is the African presence here with the blue lotus, and then some type of migration that occurred and a combining and leading to what we see today in green Tara with the lily of the Nile at her side. So there's a continuity there. We don't have scholars that have investigated this, because that would be our job, our responsibility, and we just don't have that much direction in America to excavate our past in this way. So just like there are many Christian scholars who devote their whole life to the Bible, hopefully someday there will be scholars who will look at our global presence and go as deeply as possible into answering some of these strange occurrences in history.
Outstanding. Let's go to the next image. I think some of your published materials and.
You know, I'm not really a publisher. I wrote some manuscripts, and the manuscripts were edited and put into these book forms across the top. And you know, the ABCs of liberating black anger, I tried to address the specific nature of anger as it relates to our community and what we're angry about. 100 Buddhist contemplations for African American men to you know, just suggest that Buddhism has something to offer us in that way. This book, Black Buddha, Changing the Face of American Buddhism, was named a classic in American Buddhism by Buddha Dharma magazine, which is the premier Buddhist magazine in the West for Buddhist practitioners. And then white people got mad at me for writing Black Buddha and called me a racist, so I wrote White Buddha. And then I wrote a book on, you know, the Asian and black Christian experience in the frontier West.
Whoa.
Because the Asians were brought here for labor.
For labor.
And after slavery, we were present, some places during slavery, and we've always been side by side. But the Buddhism has never come over to our community. And this explains a little bit about why, with some references. I went to historic societies in California, some study in Seattle, and you know, pulled out some writings that would help people to understand why we have had this kind of division, thinking that Buddhism is Asian and Christianity is black. That's what that's about. And this final one was a festival canceled due to heavy rain. That's the name of a movie, a documentary that I did on my pilgrimage to Cambodia. And it was given the Accolade Award for Filmmaking Excellence. And I premiered that at Nashville State Black International Film Festival. It was the first African American film about Buddhism history, and the first film of that type to premiere at a HCBU.
Okay, all right.
HBCU, sorry.
Yeah, HBCU.
And so that's kind of been some work that I've done.
Okay. It's interesting, I'm looking at the ABCs of liberating black anger. You know, you see in the society, and you see a lot of our young folks, they seem to be angry. And they don't seem to be angry, they are angry. And I know a lot of it, you know, is the historical things that have happened, and then I'm sure some of the personal things that happen. We were at Meany Middle School teaching the history of the Black Panther Party, and especially the Seattle Black Panther Party. And, you know, trying to convey to them, you know, some of the things that happened, and then what we went through, and then how can they apply certain things that we've gone through in our 10-part program and free breakfast program, free medical clinic, things of that nature, and how they could take that and try to run with it the way they wanted to do. I also mentioned to them, I said, take the good things that we had and go with it. And I said, we've made mistakes and we did some things that were not, you know, the bad things. I said, but take the good things from it. But you could sense, I don't know, you sense in society yet that a lot of them, you know, a lot of the youth and even the adults, they're all wound up, you know. I know I'm wound up. When we used to be all wound up, it's driving in Seattle. It's just, that's just one of my pet peeves. But to be on a serious note, some of your suggestions.
Well, quickly, again, from the Buddhist point of view, this is all about getting to know how your mind works. Okay. Take any negative activity, domestic violence, murder, you know, family breakups, and so on. You always find negativity, anger, plays a role. It's always present. That's a sign. That's like a cancer cell. When it's present, there's trouble. Then you look at physiologically. What diseases are you more likely to have if you hold anger over your lifetime? What will it do to your heart? What will it do to your kidneys? What will it do to your lungs? What will it do to your digestive system? What will it do to you? And who looks forward to having an angry father, or an angry mother, or an angry brother, or an angry sister? So from the Buddhist point of view, there is a kind of cerebral evaluation of, why is this anger always present when this trouble occurs? Right? So then, from a Buddhist point of view, it's, okay, I don't need to have any more study. This experience is damaging to me. I don't want to fall into the trap that anger brings. I want to live long, I want to have a happy family, and I don't want to commit crimes that will cause me to lose my freedom or worse. So therefore, anger in itself is considered, as I said, like a cancer cell. Its presence means there's going to be trouble. And that's all there is to it. Then, what most people lack is an actual methodology to rid anger from their mind. And the way to do that is love, compassion. And it's not just to intellectual love your enemies. You really have to work to forgive somebody who's broken your heart. You really have to work to understand when you're young that if you don't work on anger now, you'll pay the price when you get older. You really have to work when, that weapon, whatever it is, it could be a word, it could be a stick, it could be a gun, it gets out of control and you wind up injuring somebody by it. You got to be prepared before that to deal with that.
Well, that sounds like another show we can get into. Well, thank you very much. And one of the things that Prophet Muhammad said, peace be upon him, says, don't get angry. And I think if the Muslim world would follow that, that would be outstanding. We thank you for coming. There's more we have to get into, so hopefully we can do some more shows.
Anytime.
Thank you, dear brother. Peace and prayers to our audience, and thank you for watching.